Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am Joey Francis, your life, love, and relationship coach. Thank you so much for joining me. This week's episode is for the people who feel tired, a little frustrated, maybe slightly discouraged. I'm talking about the people who feel drained, the ones saying, I'm burnt out, I'm done with dating, I need a break. Dating just isn't worth it anymore. And here's the uncomfortable truth I want to start with. Most of you aren't tired of dating. You're tired of dating wrong. I believe I coined a term for this, even though I really don't think I did. I just believe that I did. I call it dating fatigue, because what's happening out there isn't random and it isn't bad luck. It's a pattern. And most people are completely oblivious to the role that they're playing in it. Dating fatigue doesn't come from putting yourself out there. It comes from repeatedly investing energy into the wrong people with no intention, no filtering, and definitely no self-awareness. And then acting surprised when you feel empty. People talk to too many people they already know aren't aligned. They go on dates already knowing won't lead anywhere. They ignore deal breakers because they're lonely. They chase potential instead of compatibility. And eventually, their nervous system taps out. The whole thing with choosing potential instead of compatibility. This even goes back to me talking about chemistry and people online meeting quickly to see if there's chemistry there and finding that chemistry there. And then realizing after the fact that there's no compatibility because your beliefs or values are just too different. And that's why I keep saying that you have to do these things beforehand, because chemistry isn't everything. Compatibility isn't everything. Love isn't everything. Anyways, instead of recalibrating, instead of getting more intentional, instead of getting honest with themselves, they quit. Or worse, you settle. You meet someone who's just slightly better than the chaos you've been dealing with, and suddenly that person feels like the one. Not because of the connection, not because it's exceptional or exciting, but because everything else has been exhausting. And that's dangerous, because when you're emotionally starving, anything can feel like a meal. Today, we're going to talk about why dating fatigue happens, how people accidentally create it, and why dating more, not less, is often the answer when done properly and with intention. This episode isn't here to coddle you. It's here to recalibrate you. So if you've been feeling tired, delusioned, or ready to give up, stay with me. This conversation might be the reset you didn't know you needed. Something I see consistently, and most people don't even realize it's happening to them, is dating fatigue. And no, dating fatigue doesn't mean you hate dating. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're too sensitive or asking for too much. Dating fatigue is what happens when you keep giving your time, energy, attention, and emotional access to the wrong people over and over again. It shows up quietly at first. You start saying things like, I'm burnt out, I'm done with dating, I need a break, dating just isn't worth it anymore. And listen, all viable things. I get it. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear, is that you're not tired of dating. You're tired of dating without intention. You're tired of conversations that go nowhere. You're tired of chemistry with no alignment. You're tired of potential with no follow through. You're tired of explaining yourself to people who were never capable of meeting you where you need them to be. And instead of recognizing the pattern, people blame dating itself. Dating fatigue isn't caused by effort. It's caused by misdirected effort. I was speaking to this woman, and she kept saying to me, every guy I meet disappears or disappoints, and I don't understand why. And she wasn't lying. Her dating history was full of men who pulled away after a few weeks. But here's what was really happening. Every time she met someone, she poured herself into proving she was worth keeping. Consistent check-ins, over-explaining her feelings, ignoring red flags because she was terrified of being alone again. That's anxious attachment. And we've spoken that. I did a whole episode on that stuff. And instead of filtering for compatibility, she was filtering for relief. Relief from silence, relief from insecurity, relief from loneliness. And then one man finally gave her a little more consistency. He texted back faster. He showed up on time. Nothing extraordinary, but compared to the chaos she's been tolerating, his bare minimum felt like perfection. She convinced herself, this must be my person, not because he was truly aligned, but because everyone before him was wrong. See, one of the biggest contributors to dating fatigue is lack of intention. Most people say that they want a serious relationship, but they just date like they're killing time. They don't know their real deal breakers. They don't know the values they actually need. They don't know the kind of life they're building toward. They don't know what they will and will not tolerate long term. So every date becomes a guessing game. Every connection becomes, let's see where this goes. Every red flag becomes, maybe I'm overthinking. And I know for a fact that that's going to hit with at least a handful of you. I've talked to people about this, where they've literally asked me, this person does XYZ. I don't know if I am overthinking this. I don't know if it bothers me. And it's like, but wait a minute. Is this not one of your red flags? Is this not one of the reasons like you would walk away from a person? Why are you questioning it now? And the thing is because they have gone through this so much in their life, they think that they're overthinking. Or they might talk to one of their friends and their friends will tell them that they're overthinking instead of trying to help them understand and validate their emotions at that time. And that's exhausting because dating without intention means you're consistently reacting instead of choosing. So going back to the story, yeah, that's not important. The email I just got. So she kept convincing herself that the slightly better guy must be her person. And here's what shifted everything for her. Because of me and my direction, she finally sat down and wrote out her deal breakers. Not the wish list, not the nice to haves, the deal breakers, the musts. She journaled her values. She mapped out the kind of life she wanted to build. She got brutally honest with herself about what she would no longer tolerate. And guess what? Something powerful happened. The next time she met someone, she didn't just ask, do I feel chemistry? She asked, does this person align with the life I'm building? That shift from chasing relief to choosing alignment was the beginning of her freedom from dating fatigue. Because intention matters. It matters so much. See, every time you give it a chance with someone who doesn't fit, you're draining the mental energy you need to discern the right partner. And by the time someone decent shows up, you're too tired to evaluate clearly. Fatigue makes you override your own standards. You know someone isn't right, but for some reason, you tell yourself, they're tolerable. It's fine. Maybe we can learn to love each other more. Maybe this connection will grow. At least I won't be alone. And that's not choosing a partner. That's negotiating against yourself. Anxious attachment magnifies this fatigue. So when you're exhausted, the fear of being alone feels even heavier than the discomfort of misalignment. So you cling to good enough even when it's far from what you truly want. And fatigue tricks you into believing options are limited. And it's not just dating fatigue. It's also your friends. It's also social media. It's everything. Oh, good people are so rare. When that's not the case. And then you stop filtering for compatibility and you start settling for availability. There's a dangerous choice here. This is where dating fatigue becomes most destructive. You meet someone who is clearly far from what you want. You see the red flags. You feel the misalignment. But because you're tired of swiping and small talk and tired of disappointment, you convince yourself they're not perfect, but maybe they're tolerable. Maybe this is enough. And you know what? That's not love. That's exhaustion making decisions for you. And here's the truth. Tolerating someone who doesn't fit your life is even more draining than you being alone, because every day you spend in misalignment is another day you're abandoning yourself. Intentional dating doesn't mean being rigid. It means being clear. Clear about what works for you. Clear about what doesn't. Clear about walking away early instead of forcing something to make sense. Clarity prevents fatigue. Confusion creates it. When you date without intention, fatigue makes the choice for you. When you date with intention, you're the one in control and you make the choices. And that's different between settling for tolerable and building toward aligned. Okay. Sorry, I lost my place here. What is going on? My apologies. So, yeah, dating fatigue. This is the problem when you're, reading from scripts and making notes. Okay. The paradox, why dating is more often the answer. Now, this is going to get interesting because here's where most people get it completely backwards. When dating feels exhausting, the first instinct is to pull back. To say, I'm dating too much. I need a break. I'll just stop for a while. But that's rarely the truth. What's actually happening is this. You're dating too many wrong people for too long with too little discernment. Why more can be better? If your real goal is to find a life partner, you don't need fewer experiences, you need better ones. And ironically, that often means dating more, but differently. Because dating isn't just about finding the one, it's about collecting data. Every interaction teaches you something about yourself, something about what works, something about what doesn't, and what you're no longer willing to tolerate. When you treat dating as data, fatigue starts to disappear because now every conversation, I pushed the wrong button again. Because every conversation, every coffee, my apologies. Every coffee, every first impression has value. Even if it doesn't lead to a relationship, psychologically, this shift is more powerful. When you date more with intention, you're practicing a kind of exposure therapy. Repeatedly putting yourself in situations that once felt draining until they lose their power to intimidate you. At the same time, you're reframing each encounter. Instead of seeing a failed date as wasted time, you begin to see it as information, a clue to about what you truly need. And perhaps most importantly, dating more reminds you of abundance. Fatigue thrives in scarcity. When you believe options are limited, you cling to tolerable misalignment. But when you expand your experiences, you see clearly that there are countless possibilities, and suddenly you don't have to settle for good enough. When fatigue sets in, people often make the opposite choice. They stop dating altogether. And here's the danger. When you come back, you're even more likely to settle because now you're not just tired, You're starving. And when you're starving, everything tastes good. That's how people end up in relationships they know aren't right because they wanted them, because they were desperate for relief. The paradox is this: you don't escape dating fatigue by dating less. You escape it by dating more with intention, more clarity, more discernment, more willingness to walk away early. Because the truth is, you're not looking for everyone. You're looking for one person. 1 in a million, which means that the next one probably isn't it. And that's okay. Dating fatigue disappears when you stop treating every connection like it has to go somewhere and start treating it like information. Again, big problem. Because you have to give people a chance, obviously. You have to talk to them. You have to get to know them. But if they're not the right person, they're not the right person. It's got to be like okay, at least for me, it's a pass-fail. Now, here's the reset. You avoid dating fatigue not by stopping, not by hiding, not by swearing off dating altogether. You avoid it by changing how you date. Here's where that story comes full circle about the woman I told you about. Where she was writing down her non-negotiables and everything that I told her to do. She finally put it into practice. She started dating more, but differently. Instead of clinging to every conversation, she treated each one like data. Instead of asking, could this be the one? She asked, what does this interaction teach me? And here's what happened. She stopped feeling drained. She stopped mistaking slightly better for perfect. She stopped tolerating misalignment just because she was tired. Dating became lighter, cleaner, more honest, because now every date was either a step closer to alignment or a clear signal to walk away. Avoiding dating fatigue is about shifting the way you engage. It means ending things sooner instead of dragging them out. Paying attention to how you feel after interactions instead of how badly you want them to work, refusing to force chemistry into compatibility. And respecting your deal breakers instead of negotiating them away. It means remembering that rejection and misalignment are not failures, they're filters. Every no is progress. Every misstep is information. When you approach dating this way, it stops being a drain and starts being a refinement process. Fatigue doesn't just make you tired. It starts to distort your judgment. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. When your mental energy is depleted, your default is easier, lower quality choices. In dating, that looks like settling for someone you know isn't right simply because they're tolerable in the moment. It's self-abandonment disguised as relief. You override your own standards to escape loneliness, telling yourself, at least I won't be alone. But tolerating misalignment is more exhausting than being single because every day you spend in the wrong relationship, it just drains you further. Attachment theory explains why this happened. Anxious attachment magnifies fatigue. When you're exhausted, the fear of being alone feels heavier than the discomfort of misalignment. I know I'm repeating myself. I know that I am. But the thing is you cling to good enough even when it's far from what you truly want. Scarcity makes you believe that these options are, the best thing for you because there's so few. When you stop expecting every day to be the one and start seeing each one as a step closer to alignment, dating becomes easier. It becomes lighter. It becomes more of an adventure. And that's when the right person finally has the place or has the space to show up. Anyways, my final thoughts. Dating fatigue isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that you've been pouring your energy into the wrong places with the wrong people for too long. And the first step to breaking that cycle is awareness. Because you can't change what you don't recognize. before you keep swiping, before you say yes to another date, pause and ask yourself, how do I feel when I think about dating right now? Am I excited, curious, heavy, or drained? Do I leave most interactions feeling energized? Or do I walk away feeling smaller, lonelier, or numb? Am I choosing people because they truly align with me, or because I'm tired of being alone and they just feel tolerable? And if your answers lean towards exhaustion, numbness, or tolerating misalignment, that's not a sign you should quit dating. It's a sign you need to reset how you're dating. Dating fatigue isn't about effort, it's about misdirected effort. And when you start checking in with yourself, when you start recognizing the signs of fatigue, you reclaim the power to choose differently. Dating becomes lighter, calmer, cleaner, and most importantly, honest. And that's when the right person can finally show up in your life. I hope that you got something out of this. I know I repeat myself. The thing is I repeat myself because a lot of people need to hear things more than once for it to actually seep into your head, for you to start really understanding what I'm trying to say. Because at the end of the day, these choices are your choices. You know, you're the one going through this. If you want to take a break because you need a break, take a break. But you have to ask yourself, if you really want a life partner, if you really want to find somebody, what is the farthest thing from getting you to that goal? Simply put, it's just not dating. It's not going out there. It's not meeting people. It's not talking to people. So unfortunately, it's going to get you nowhere. And I mean, again, if you need to take a break, take a break. But just remember what your goal is and how to achieve that goal. It's to do it with intention. Anyways, I'm going to stop repeating myself and I'm going to end this right here. So thank you so much for listening to me. I honestly greatly appreciate it so very, very, very much. I'm trying in the new year to be a little bit more in depth, to be more thoughtful, and to actually give you good advice on how you can look into yourself and, discover the things you need to discover. And if you need help to do those things, I do have a guided journal which can help you. It's called The Logic of Me, a guided journal for self-discovery, written by me, Joey Francis. You can get that on my website at joeyfrances.com. There you can also find my other book, Fate is Bullshit, as well as this podcast where it's available on other platforms. And you can send me a message. So if there's something you want to talk about, if there's something you want to ask me, and if you need help or even just someone to talk to, I'm here. And I'm giving you freedom to reach out to me. Again, thank you very, very much. And remember, when you stop expecting every date to be the one and start seeing each one as a step closer to alignment, dating becomes lighter, calmer, cleaner, and more honest. And that's when the right person finally has space to show up. Till next time.